understand the disappearance of Lauren Spierer, one must first reconstruct the precise geography and chronology of downtown Bloomington, Indiana. During the early hours of June 3rd, 2011, the investigation that followed relied heavily on a patchwork of digital footprints, including surveillance footage, key card logs, and cellular tower triangulation, which investigators used to piece together the final known movements of the 20-year-old Indiana University student. Bloomington is defined by its grid system, specifically the blocks surrounding the university campus, where student housing dominates the landscape. Lauren resided at Smallwood Plaza, a high-density apartment complex located at the intersection of 9th Street and College Avenue. This location is central to the case file, serving as both a point of origin and a transit hub throughout the timeline established by law enforcement. The context of the case is anchored in the geography of a few specific city blocks, a radius of less than half a mile, where hundreds of students were active during the hours in question. According to medical records obtained during the inquiry, Lauren Spierer had a documented heart condition known as long QT syndrome. This congenital disorder affects the electrical activity of the heart and can cause sudden arrhythmias, particularly when triggered by physical stress or substance use. This detail became relevant to investigators assessing the potential medical implications of the events that transpired that night. Her physical description was entered into the National Crime Information Center database as a female standing 4 feet 11 inches tall and weighing roughly 90 to 95 pounds. These biometrics are significant when analyzing toxicology estimates and the physiological impact of substances consumed throughout the evening. The timeline begins on the evening of June 2nd. Witness statements collected by the Bloomington Police Department indicate that Lauren spent the early part of the evening at her apartment in Smallwood Plaza with friends. Among them was a distinct social circle that would later be scrutinized during the canvassing process. Records show that she was consuming wine with friends before moving to a neighbor's apartment down the hall. At approximately 12:30 in the morning on June 3rd, Lauren and a friend, David Rohn, left her apartment building. They walked to Jay Rosenbaum's residence at the 5 North Townhomes, a complex located at the corner of 11th Street and Morton Street. This location is roughly a 5-minute walk from Smallwood Plaza. Procedural notes highlight that the proximity of these locations created a false sense of security within the student population, as the short distances between venues often negated the perceived need for vehicular transport or strict accompaniment. After a brief interval at the townhomes, the group, now including Lauren, David Rohn, and Corey Rossman, proceeded to Kilroy's Sports Bar. This establishment is a prominent fixture in the local social scene, featuring a distinct outdoor area with a sand floor. Investigators later subpoenaed the surveillance systems from the venue. The footage provided a verified sighting of Lauren entering the establishment. The time was recorded as 1:46 in the morning. While inside the venue, the narrative relies on witness interviews rather than continuous video coverage. Observers noted Lauren's condition appeared to deteriorate. Reports suggest she was observed stumbling. A critical procedural detail emerged from this location. She abandoned her footwear, leaving her shoes and her cellular telephone on the patio of the bar. The loss of the phone created a temporary blackout in her digital communications. Although the device was later recovered by another patron and turned in, creating a chain of custody that police had to later verify. The timeline moves to 2:27 in the morning. Security cameras at Kilroy's sports bar captured Lauren leaving the premises. She was accompanied by Corey Rossman. The footage shows them walking out of the frame, heading back toward the residential complexes. This timestamp is considered a hard anchor in the investigation, one of the few indisputable facts in a timeline that subsequently becomes reliant on conflicting testimony. 10 minutes later, at 2:30 in the morning, Lauren and Rossman arrived at Smallwood Plaza. The building's access control system recorded the entry. Surveillance cameras in the lobby and hallways provided investigators with visual evidence of their arrival. The footage from the 5th floor of Smallwood Plaza is particularly significant. It depicts Lauren in a state of significant physical impairment. She is seen struggling to maintain her balance, requiring assistance to navigate the corridor. It was during this interval that an altercation occurred. According to statements provided to detectives, a confrontation took place between Rossman and another resident named Zach Oakes. Oakes reportedly questioned the condition Lauren was in, leading to a physical exchange. During this incident, Rossman was reportedly struck in the face. The procedural relevance of this altercation is twofold. It established the heightened tensions and confusion of the night, and it potentially contributed to a decision to leave the building rather than stay. Lauren did not return to her own apartment, despite being in her building of residence, reportedly having lost her keys during the evening's activities. At approximately 2:48 in the morning, Lauren and Rossman exited Smallwood Plaza. They entered the alleyway situated between the apartment complex and a nearby parking garage. This alleyway lacks the high-density surveillance coverage found in the main lobbies, creating a blind spot in the visual record. They began the walk back toward the 5 North townhomes. The walk is short, yet the specific route taken was subject to reconstruction efforts by forensic mapping teams. Upon arriving at the townhomes, the situation involves multiple individuals. Rossman's roommate, Michael Bate, was present at the apartment. Statements indicate that Rossman, apparently injured from the earlier altercation at Smallwood, went to bed. This left Lauren in the company of the other occupants. The timeline becomes granular between 3 in the morning and 4:15 in the morning. During this window, Lauren was reportedly in the apartment of Jay Rosenbaum. The investigation focused heavily on the communications attempted during this hour. Although Lauren had lost her phone at the bar, it was established that she used a phone belonging to one of the males in the apartment to attempt to contact her boyfriend, Jesse Wolfe, as well as her friend, David Rohn. Phone records obtained via warrant show 2 calls were placed from the device to Wolfe's number. The first call was logged at 4:15 in the morning. The second call followed shortly after. Neither call was answered. Wolfe told investigators he was asleep at his residence during this time. The existence of these calls provides proof of life at 4:15 in the morning, placing Lauren within the confines of the 5 North complex at that specific minute. The narrative provided by Rosenbaum states that Lauren expressed a desire to leave. He claimed that he attempted to persuade her to stay and sleep on the couch, citing her level of intoxication and the late hour. However, according to his statement, she was insistent on returning to her own apartment. This leads to the final asserted sighting. Rosenbaum told police that at approximately 4:30 in the morning, he watched Lauren walk out of his apartment door. He stated that she walked to the corner of 11th Street and College Avenue. From his vantage point on the balcony, he claimed to see her turn the corner, heading south toward her apartment at Smallwood Plaza. This specific geographic coordinate, the corner of 11th and College, marks the terminus of the established timeline. Procedural analysis of this final movement reveals a significant gap in the evidence. The distance between 5 North and Smallwood Plaza is roughly 2 blocks. However, investigators noted that the surveillance coverage in this specific sector was inconsistent. While there were cameras on nearby municipal buses and commercial buildings, a comprehensive review of the footage from that morning failed to yield a verified sighting of Lauren walking south on College Avenue after 4:30 in the morning. The environmental conditions documented for that morning indicate clear weather. Sunrise on June 3rd, 2011 was at 6:19 in the morning. This means the alleged departure occurred in the pre-dawn darkness, nearly 2 hours before first light. The context of the disappearance is further complicated by the immediate aftermath. The alarm was not raised instantly. It was not until later in the day, on June 3rd, that the absence of communication from Lauren began to trigger concern among her social circle. The initial delay in reporting the situation is a common factor in cases involving young adults in university settings, where irregular sleeping patterns and uncharged phones are frequent occurrences. Jesse Wolfe, her boyfriend, reported her missing after failing to reach her. He contacted the Bloomington Police Department at approximately 4:30 in the afternoon on June 3rd. By the time the official missing persons report was filed, nearly 12 hours had elapsed since the alleged 4:30 departure time. This interval allowed for the degradation of potential physical traces and the overwriting of certain digital cache data that might have been useful to forensic technicians. One of the primary failures noted in the retrospective analysis was the delay in securing the perimeter of the search. Because the report was filed late in the afternoon, the daily municipal operations of Bloomington had proceeded without interruption. Specifically, sanitation trucks had completed their scheduled routes on the morning of June 3rd. Dumpsters in the vicinity of 11th Street and College Avenue, as well as those near Smallwood Plaza, had been emptied before law enforcement could cordon off the area. This procedural gap necessitated a massive expansion of the search radius. In the days that followed, the Bloomington Police Department, assisted by federal agencies, initiated a massive grid search. They divided the city into zones, conducting line searches through wooded areas, landfills, and bodies of water. They canvassed the route between 11th Street and 9th Street, looking for any sign of a struggle or dropped items. A forensic search of the apartment at 5 North Townhomes was executed. Technicians swept the premises for biological markers, signs of a struggle, or property belonging to the missing student. However, procedural delays meant that this processing did not occur immediately upon the filing of the missing person report. By the time the location was secured for forensic testing, the environment had been potentially compromised by the passage of time and the movement of residents. The inventory lists from this search returned no conclusive results linking the location to a fatal incident. Her cellular device and shoes were notably absent from the scene, yet they were never recovered in the surrounding area. Forensic examination of the route between Rosenbaum's apartment and Spierer's residence yielded one piece of tangible evidence. A set of keys belonging to Spierer was located in an alleyway between College Avenue and Morton Street. The discovery was made not by police, but by a volunteer searcher. The location of the keys was problematic for the timeline provided by Rosenbaum. They were found in a direction that did not align with a direct walk home. This discrepancy led investigators to canvass the area extensively, looking for video surveillance from local businesses that might explain the deviation. A white truck was identified on grainy surveillance footage circling the block around the time of the disappearance. This vehicle became a subject of intense scrutiny. Press releases were issued asking for the public's assistance in identifying the driver. Despite tracking down several owners of similar vehicles, no definitive link was established, and the vehicle remained a loose thread in the investigative tapestry. By August 2011, investigators pivoted to a more industrial search method based on the routing schedules of waste management vehicles that serviced the downtown Bloomington area on the morning of the disappearance. Authorities isolated a specific zone within the Sycamore Ridge landfill in Pimento, Indiana. The decision to search the landfill was a calculated procedural move, driven by the theory that if the individual had been concealed within a dumpster in the city, evidence would have been transported to this facility. The operation at the landfill was a massive logistical undertaking. It commenced on August 16, 2011. Over the course of 9 days, investigators, including officers from the Bloomington Police Department and the Indiana University Police Department, sifted through over 4,100 tons of waste. The process involved heavy machinery spreading the refuse, which was then manually inspected by law enforcement personnel and trained detection canines. The search protocols required the examination of any item that could possibly be linked to the case. Despite the precise calculation of the search zone and the labor-intensive methodology, the operation concluded on August 26th without the recovery of any relevant evidence. Parallel to the physical search, the investigation focused on the individuals who were last seen with the missing student. The primary persons of interest were identified as Corey Rossman and Jay Rosenbaum. Additionally, police questioned Mike Bate, who was present at Rosenbaum's apartment earlier in the night. Procedural documentation highlights a swift shift in the cooperation level of these individuals. While initial statements were provided, the persons of interest quickly retained legal counsel. This is a standard constitutional right. Yet, investigators noted in the file that it severely limited the ability to conduct follow-up interviews or clarify inconsistencies in the timeline. For example, Rossman claimed a lack of memory regarding the events of the walk from Smallwood to Rosenbaum's apartment, citing a head injury sustained during the altercation with Oakes. Medical records were reviewed to substantiate this claim, but the lack of a detailed account left a significant void in the narrative. A crucial component of the file involves polygraph examinations. Records indicate that several individuals connected to the case submitted to polygraph testing. However, the persons of interest who were last with Spierer, specifically Rossman and Rosenbaum, declined to be tested by police, acting on the advice of their attorneys. While polygraphs are generally inadmissible in court. Investigators often use them as a tool to clear subjects or focus resources. The refusal to participate created a stalemate in the elimination process. In an attempt to generate new leads, the Spierer family hired private investigators who operated outside the jurisdictional constraints of the Bloomington police. These private inquiries often revisited the accounts of the persons of interest, attempting to find contradictions. Additionally, in June 2013, a civil suit was filed against the men who were last seen with her. The objective of this legal maneuver was procedural. The civil court system allows for different standards of evidence and, crucially, the power of deposition. The family sought to compel the individuals to answer questions under oath that they had not answered during the police investigation. However, the legal system presented its own set of barriers. The defense teams for the individuals filed motions to dismiss the suit. The legal arguments centered on the duty of care. The court had to determine whether the men had a legal obligation to ensure the safety of the missing student after she left the apartment. In a significant ruling, the federal judge dismissed the suit. The court found that under Indiana law, the individuals did not have a custodial duty to the student, as she was an adult capable of making her own decisions, regardless of her intoxication level. This ruling effectively closed the avenue for obtaining compelled testimony through civil litigation. 2 months after the disappearance, the police executed a search warrant on the personal vehicle of one of the persons of interest. Forensic teams stripped the interior, analyzing fibers and vacuuming for microscopic trace evidence. The lab results returned inconclusive. There was no transfer of material that could definitively place Spierer in the vehicle during the critical window. The context of the case relies on the juxtaposition of high-definition surveillance and total digital silence. Up until 2:48 in the morning, Lauren's movements were tracked with a high degree of certainty through video and access logs. From 2:48 to 4:15 in the morning, the timeline is supported by witness statements and phone logs from a third-party device. After 4:30 in the morning, the doctrine of evidence yields nothing. There is no footprint, no digital handshake with a cell tower, and no independent witness verification of her walking along College Avenue. The procedural reality of the Lauren Spierer case is that the investigation hit a hard wall at the threshold of the 5 North townhomes. The inquiry was forced to operate within the vacuum of that final walk, a walk that, according to the available physical records, may or may not have ever taken place. The absence of data in a modern, surveillance-heavy university town became the defining characteristic of the file. The status of the case is classified as an active investigation, though it has long since transitioned into a cold case phase. The timeline established by the Bloomington Police Department remains frozen at the intersection of 11th Street and College Avenue. There is no record of a departure from the city. There is no digital footprint after the early morning of June 3rd. The files contain thousands of pages of interviews, logs, and forensic reports. Yet, they lack the single piece of data required to close the loop: the location of Lauren Spierer. The procedural machinery functioned as designed. Searches were conducted. Persons of interest were identified, and legal avenues were explored. But the system failed to produce the final answer. The investigation stands as a testament to the fact that without physical evidence, even the most rigorous procedural work can lead to a dead end.